Previously on The Search, the Defiant was out searching. Now back to the story.
You really are just like me, aren't you?
Yes.
Except without the stick up our asses. What's up with you? So it is here that we first meet the character known only as the female changeling, played by veteran actor and narrator Salome Jens. The Jens in science fiction go way back, actually. She had her feature film debut in the sci-fi horror flick Terror from the Year 5000. And if you're saying to yourself, that sounds awful, like the kind of film they'd cover on Mystery Science Theater 3000 awful. Well, funny story.
The sick and frail nurse of the herd.
Appropriately, she played a monster who could steal your face. Anyway, whether or not the female changeling is actually female doesn't really matter. I don't know how they procreate, and while I'm normally fascinated by alien biology, I think I'll pass on knowing these particular details. But details are what Odo's all about, though, so he starts quizzing until Kira steps in and says, hey, maybe ratchet down the detective thing and focus a bit about enjoying the moment. Well, as much as the lighting here allows anyway. Could use a few candles about the place to give it some atmosphere. The FC explains that everyone is part of his family and exists together in the Great Link, and they sent him out when he was just an infant. It takes a village to neglect a child. She merges her hand with his, what we'll learn is called the joining, which leaves him looking like he should have a spinning blue circle on his face, until he finally tells Kira what's going on. Then he smiles because he's finally come home. A dark, abandoned world where his people clutter together in a giant puddle in the hopes no one will ever find them, but a home nevertheless, be it ever so humble. After the titles, Sisko gives a log entry that, well, this diplomatic mission has run into a bit of a snag, with it just being him and Bashir stuck in this shuttle for the last 6 days, while they're trying to limp back to the wormhole.
And life support systems are at 20% and dropping.
But other than that, we couldn't be in better shape.
I thought you were sleeping.
I was about to hit you over the head and eat you. This conversation is interrupted as they're nabbed by some ship, but it's O'Brien and Dax on the other side of the door, thankfully, and sounds like there's good news. By the time they'll return to the station, there should be a delegation from the Dominion that is going to come to the station for a historic diplomatic mission. So we better get back there pronto or we'll miss all the fun of diplomacying. Back on the Changeling planet, Odo is griping about being left here, feeling like an outsider still, which Kira points out is ironic because she's the one that they don't trust. FC comes by to say, hell yeah, we don't trust you. We don't trust any of your kind. Your filthy, pitiful, limited kind. Because you're such bigots. She explains to Odo that the garden here is an opportunity to practice his shape-shifting.
To become a thing is to know a thing. To assume its form is to begin to understand its existence.
Now, of course, we all know where this is going, given what the shapeshifters are and why they do what they do, which is what makes this statement very significant. The changelings believe that they can understand through their imitation, and yet we know they do not, because they see the other races in the galaxy as inferior life forms that require their leadership, guidance, and most importantly, tough love, by any means necessary. Despite having all the shared knowledge that has been passed down through the Great Link, they have no understanding of the lives of those that they would dominate and put down. Thus we know that this philosophy at the center of how they think is fundamentally flawed. And yet they will go on considering themselves gods. The funny thing is that Odo will follow her advice and quickly reach the conclusion that he doesn't understand what it is to be the things that he is imitating. He can't even understand it as a rock or a flower. How about something as complex as a sapient life form? Over on DS9, Sisko finally gets to meet one of the founders, and he's of the same species as Eris. I guess she was lying about being a founder. That or she got demoted for smacking people with her telekinetic balls whenever they were bent over. This whole thing is what the Federation wanted, of course, so now that it's here, Sisko is actually skeptical. After all, they went from trying to kill them to offering the hand of friendship. That's good, but usually that takes a Kirk, a torn shirt, and a lot of gesticulating during a speech to get that kind of result. Sisko's sentiment seems to be shared by Garrick, sharing the proverb, enemies make dangerous friends, which is effective because it speaks of Cardassian paranoia, while nevertheless having a ring of truth, and since the Talaxian didn't say it, it doesn't sound idiotic. Despite this, the Cardassians are in on the negotiations, along with many other species, but apparently not the Romulans, as we learn from Torul when she comes out of sickbay after her argument with some security officers about protesting this to the Federation diplomatic team. And really, this would be a pretty big betrayal. They loan the Federation a cloaking device, and in return, they get left in the kitchen washing the dishes while the Cardassians, who seem intent on picking their noses and wiping on the furniture, are allowed to just make themselves at home.
There must be some mistake.
The mistake is thinking the Romulan Empire will stand by and allow such a betrayal to go unchallenged. Believe me, Doctor, if a treaty is signed without our approval, it will mean war.
Yeah, they're known to be a little prideful, and this is the mother of all pecker slaps, though I suppose that analogy is a bit contradictory. Suffice to say, it's a huge damn insult of a race not known for countenancing insults. It'd be like the UN announcing, there is now discussions on the table for a workable plan for world peace to allow us all to come together as one people, especially North Korea and Syria, whom we're honored to have here, for all are welcome. Except for France, because no one likes the damn frogs. If we need a chain smoker complaining about his 12-hour work week, we'll let you know, Frenchie. Right, it'd be a disaster, wouldn't it? A hilarious disaster, but a disaster nevertheless. So Sisko takes it up with Admiral Nechayev, and she says it's what the Dominion wants, so they agreed to go along with it, on the reasoning that, who cares if they're peeved, they won't stand a chance against our new alliance. This is a stupid justification, even by Nechayev's low standards, so Sisko is left to think about what he's going to have to do now. Back on the Changeling planet, Kira is trying to get in touch with Sisko. The FC said not to, so she doesn't give away where the plan is, but Kira assures Odo that there's a way she can do it that will look just like normal background radiation, unless you're trained in how to decode it, like Sisko is. Only she can't send the message because there's a power source interfering, so she's going to need to sort that out, while Odo's asking the FC some questions.
Why do you dislike humanoids so much?
Oh boy, get comfortable. This is like asking a guy's opinion on Muslims while he's putting Confederate flag truck nuts on his riding mower. She says that the Great Link says that they used to be explorers, but they were met with mistrust too often, and were often killed by those who hated and feared them, so they hid themselves here. To learn about the galaxy, 100 infant changelings were sent out in what was intended as a mission of exploration that would take centuries, given the instinctive desire to return home. Odo came back early thanks to the wormhole, but she's no less glad to see him. And then they meld fully, on camera, which I think is against the law to show before 9 p.m. Back on DS9, Quark fills Bashir and O'Brien in on the good news. The peace talks are about to be finalized.
I have a dream. A dream that one day all people, human, Jem'Hadar, Ferengi, Cardassians, will stand together in peace around my Davo tables.
A message of peace, love, and the house always winning. The dream sadly won't be coming today, because when the Jem'Hadar stumbles into O'Brien, the big guy feels insulted and expresses that through the ancient tongue known as the ass-kicking. Bashir intervenes, but before he receives a message of his own, Eddington comes in and puts a stop to it by assuring the Jem'Hadar soldier that it won't happen again. Good thing he didn't snap anyone's neck. Eddington would have to give the Jem'Hadar a free drink. Sisko hasn't heard about this yet, but he's already feeling a bit down about these negotiations, partially because they're happening behind closed doors, which serves as a subtle callback to the first episode about Sisko wanting to do more than just give the orders. He wants to personally see things through to the end, but here he can't. But soon he's in the office demanding to know WTF from Admiral Nechayev, about O'Brien, about the Romulans, about why Dax is being reassigned, and I don't like your face either. Nechayev says that the Dax thing is just the first. They're completely pulling out of Bajor and letting the Dominion handle things. Bajor and the wormhole from now on. Well, that's a horrible treaty, and it'll be a cold day in hell before the Federation signs it.
And you, Benjamin, get a promotion. Captain Sisko.
On the other hand, friendship with the Dominion could be... No, forget it. We can't sign the treaty, and I won't take this sitting down.
The treaty was signed late this afternoon.
All right, I'll take it sitting down, but I won't like it. Back on the rogue planet, Odo shows up after a trip around as a vulture, because what else is he going to be? A buzzard? He has standards, damn it.
The air currents beneath my wings. The exhilaration of soaring above the treetops.
Pooping on cars. So Bette Midler here is going to be staying, but before Kira leaves him here, she needs his help with one last mystery. That power source is located behind a door, which makes no sense. The shapeshifters are all about their mass puddle orgy. What's the point of a door to them? They don't want outsiders here, and they have no need to hide things from each other here. Plus, as Odo knows, they don't like taking humanoid form. This whole thing is like discovering that a joint PETA GLAD meeting is being catered by Chick-fil-A. None of this makes any sense whatsoever. Back on DS9, as Garrick and Sisko discuss the growing alliance between Bajor and the Romulans to resist the Dominion, Tyrul is gunned down on the promenade. Sisko freaks at her dying in his arms and attacks the Jem'Hadar who killed her, getting tossed in the lockup for it, until Bashir, Dax, and Garrick rescue him. Along with O'Brien and the runabout that he's commandeered, they're going to follow up on the plan that Dax had suggested as the final option back in Part 1, to close the wormhole. Things are rocky. Garrick gets them past the first obstacle, but then is gunned down almost immediately after that. Okay. Tyrul, sure, there was no sign she's a permanent character, but Garrick? Now we know this has to be a fake reality. Garrick doesn't get gunned down unawares. You might as well say, there's a problem, and quantum is not the answer. I'm just not buying it. But they get in their runabout, fly off, and shut down the wormhole with a few torpedoes. Not sure how the prophets are going to feel about the emissary blowing up their house. That probably won't go down well. Back on the rogue planet, Odo has figured out how to open that door. It's made more to keep whatever's inside in than what's outside out. What's inside are two Jem'Hadar. Well, I suppose that's something you'd rather keep locked inside, yes. But deeper in, yep, gang's all here, and they're hooked up into some kind of mind probe experimental thingy. Everything this episode for them has been a test to see their reactions to an attempt at a Dominion foothold in the Alpha Quadrant. That's when the big reveal happens. The changelings are the founders they've been looking for. They created this powerful interstellar empire to bring order to the galaxy with their vast control of system after system after system to ensure that no solids can ever threaten to sully their world with their presence. That's why they brought the captives here, of course. Odo rejects his people, saying that he's devoted his life to justice, but the FC turns it around and tells him that's not what he's looking for. It's order, just like they do. And this does again tie in with Part 1, Odo's zeal for his work going beyond what the rules allow, and why he was able to tolerate working for the Cardassians, since obviously justice is less important to them than order is. But he's still leaving and taking the rest with him, and the changelings are not going to stop him. Their refusal to harm one of their own runs so deep that they would rather sacrifice the secrecy of their home than to oppose Odo, which would be admirable if that wasn't the beginning and end of their generosity. The changelings can merge with each other, can know all the feelings of each other, but they can't do that with solids, and thus lack any empathy for them. Post-episode follow-up. Annoying character goes to pod person Admiral Nechayev, as insufferable as always, no matter what dimension she's in. Final score for The Search in its entirety is 8 out of 10. It's a solid story that successfully builds upon the previous game changer of the Jem'Hadar, and successfully ends the first chapter of Odo's personal story in order to begin this new one. He now knows where he comes from, and he has to struggle because it wasn't the answer that he was hoping for. For the Federation, this ups the Dominion threat. Not only does the Federation's only warship get defeated during its first battle, but they learn that the enemy's ranks contain shapeshifters. Diplomacy is not an option, and conflict doesn't look good for the Federation. The Search gives a taste of just how great a threat the Dominion truly is, while at the same time allowing for Odo to find his answers. A good 1-2 punch story. All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
I'm afraid you have a loose thread right here.